Everybody, please be quiet. Everybody, hush, hush. Some people are So today, these lovely debaters are going to be debating on whether drug testing should be monthly in high schools, and we have Sophie and Phoebe, who are 4, and Christopher and Marcus, who are, and Marcus is not here. Okay, so up first will be Sophie.
School administrators are in charge of ensuring that your school is a safe and welcoming place to be. Do you really think you'll feel safe knowing that there are people carrying drugs all around you? Probably not. Drugs, alcohol, and other toxins can cause developmental disabilities. It's been shown that kids born to drug addict parents face long-term effects from the exposure. When it comes to drug testing in high schools, it's usually in form of urinalysis. Urinalysis is a form of drug testing where they'll take a sample of your urine, then put it through a test which can then detect if you have recently taken marijuana, cocaine, both steroids and prescription pain relievers. If we do this, it should reduce the amount of drugs in each high school. Nearly 44% of students that took a test told the people giving the test that they knew a friend who sells drugs. That means 44% of students know a friend who sells drugs. It's marked the 6th year in a row that 60% of students have reported saying their high school are drug infected. In conclusion, I think that drug testing in high schools is a great idea.
Okay, first off, mandatory testing implies that everyone is tested, but statistics show that the majority of high school students don't truly do drugs. The main problem with this is that these tests are very expensive to do, and that money could be put towards better prevention methods and towards other things. As well as, these tests can be disruptive to the learning environment and or go against certain people's religions, philosophies, etc. Secondly, another one of the problems with the drug tests is that they're not always correct. Tests can have false positives and false negatives as well. And if you take a medication for whatever reason, that can affect the results. And even though sometimes they say you won't get expelled, that isn't always true. In fact, quite a lot of the times, people who do show positive are expelled, and that can never really go off your record. Thirdly, random drug tests wouldn't help very much. Statistics from the war on drugs from the US have showed that making drugs of such a hardline approach don't really help. In fact, they can make things worse. In Switzerland, for example, they had a similar problem, and they tried a system where they opened clinics and actually helped drug addicts through their problems of making them feel worse, and it worked. Fourthly, even if the testing is based on actual evidence, the factors at play are most likely biased. Imagine that you are the tester for your school and are finding what people should take the test. Someone might say people who come from a poor background are more likely to do drugs, or maybe people who have had traumatic childhood experiences, or even different ethnicities. You can't do these cookie-cutter tests. Well, if you test everyone, it takes a lot of time and money, and if you choose based on traits or characteristics, you are likely going to discriminate against one group or another. Finally, there is no concrete evidence that drug testing deters drug use, and more importantly, doesn't get to the root of the problem. Resources should be put towards that instead. Thank you.
Did you know about 17% of American high school students are drinking, smoking, or using drugs during the school day? That is crazy to think about the things we do in our free time versus the things that they do. For instance, we like to play basketball or capture the flag in our free time, and they are smoking in their free time. This needs to stop. Another statistic says that 42% of high school students have used an illegal substance within a year. I think if high school students knew that every month a person would visit their high school to test them for drugs, it would prevent their hankering to do naughty actions such as marijuana. Another advantage to being drug tested is that if the test comes out positive, then your parents and guardians would be alerted. In most cases, then your parents would take action by helping you to get over this addiction. This may then lower the percent of high school students involved with illegal substances before the problem gets serious. Do you recall the whole fentanyl epidemic that went on in the past few years? High school students may not know that fentanyl could be laced in the drugs that they are taking. Regular drug testing at secondary schools may save lives before the lethal drugs are used by these uninformed students. Thank you.
Now the debaters will debate among themselves.
Christopher, you said that there's a very small, there's a huge percent of people that don't do drugs in the high schools, but there is also a small percent of people that do. But that other percent is very important. The other people don't have to worry because they made their decision. But these people made the decision to do these bad actions, and I think it is important that people are aware that this is happening in high schools.
Yes, that is very true, but drug testing doesn't really get properly to the root of the problem. Like already mentioned, in the war on drugs, they escalated everything. It's basically like in these high schools, but countrywide. Most of the crimes and problems associated with drug use can actually be attributed to the war on drugs directly. And that's partially why the U.S. has the highest prison population in the world, despite not having the largest.
So you don't think it's important that these people are drug tested?
It's important that they are drug tested, but I think there are better methods to prevent them from doing drugs and actually helping them feel what they're doing. A lot of these kids may... Okay, so just imagine you guys are in high school, and then one of your friends offers you a drug to take just, I don't know, for whatever reason. If you take it through peer pressure or whatever, but then you decide this isn't for me and then the drug test the next day, those could have terrible results on basically your entire life. As we saw with the story yesterday, one bad decision can ruin your entire life. There are better ways to get to the root of these problems. Most people, later on in life, can actually, most of the time the reason for doing drugs is actually something else, like they don't have very many friends or they have family issues and stuff like that.
Okay, you said that a lot of the times the tests are not right, but they wouldn't put a test in a high school where there are students, and they wouldn't do the test if they knew that this wouldn't work. The things that they use are very high tech, and I'm pretty sure it never comes out positive, or very rarely at least.
It's not untrue that tests don't work. They do work majority of the time, but those few times where it doesn't work and someone gets a false positive, or someone who actually is doing drugs and they're having problems because of it, like something that affects the brain, if they don't get picked up for, say, they're using a masking agent or the test just fails for some reason, that is a big problem. It's not just you can't ignore just the few that don't work.
And you said it takes up a lot of time, but I think it's definitely worth the time. They wouldn't put it in the schools. They know what they're going for. They know that it is going to take time. So if they knew that it wasn't worth it, they wouldn't have done it. But it is definitely worth it because this is a very important problem.
Yes, I think these days they do work, and they can work very well, but with the minority of people they find, it just takes a while. It's flawed, but it can work.
Okay, now we're going to take some questions. Okay, Molly.
Phoebe and Sophie, why do you think they should be tested every month? Why not every 2 months or something a bit wrong?
I think if it's on a regular basis, it will come out, it will be more, effective, yeah, and it will be more persistent. And I feel like if they come every month, eventually it will get better. And I feel like that's the best way for it to slowly reduce and improve.
Phoebe, you said that they will usually come out positive, but that's not true because in sports, they dope 6 months in advance so they don't get caught. And also, I have another question for you two. Do you think we should drug test not just for recreational, but for the sports teams?
Well, we said that it should be the whole school. So the sports teams are a part of the school. I think that they wouldn't exclude that big group of people.
Okay, Hunter.
Okay. How are you proposing you're gonna pay for all this?
Well, we would pay for this. It would be the
how-
program, and this is their job. They would do this. They wouldn't ask these people to come into schools and drug test their students if they didn't have the money. They wouldn't do that. That's like
So
unprofessional.
how will the school pay? Like, is the school paying, or are they just coming in? Because they need like a lot of equipment.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of schools.
But I'm sure that we're proposing that this is a good idea, but we're not saying that every school in the whole world, there's like over.
No, I'm just saying in the province, there's a lot of schools.
Yeah.
Are you just for in Vancouver or everywhere?
We're just proposing that it's a good idea, but the schools will decide if they would want to do it.
Okay, Jada. I have a question for all of you. Phoebe said that 17% of students do drugs or alcohol during school hours. So what percentage do you think it is outside of school?
I think it's a bigger percentage because I think it's like way easier to get caught at school where there's people supervising lots of children than like in your free time, because you never know where people are in their free time. You never know what they're doing. So I think it's a bigger percentage definitely.
Atticus.
Okay, for Sophie and Katie, you said there should be drug testing every month. Well then what if like you use drugs like the day after? Then it won't be in your system for the next drug test. So how will you deal with that?
Well, they will come every month, so it will be persistent, and then they will note it. Because if they happen after, it will be in their program the next time.
I don't think not for a month.
So wait, so since it's a program, the school pays for a program with the parents' fees, right? So you're paying for your child to get drug tested. Why wouldn't you just go to the hospital? Because it's free healthcare. So you could just go to the hospital to get your child drug tested.
Well, that is definitely like an option, but I feel like it is more, I don't know, I feel like it also is a good idea for it to be at schools, because at hospitals you could decide if you would want to go or not, and here it's more.
Well, no, like, if you're under 18, your parents are legally bound to. So.
Until they bail, because that doesn't mean it's
Okay, Isabel. Isabel.
Okay, so will like everybody know what day the drug tests are on? Because if they know what day it's on, then they won't like.
Yeah, so I talked to like this person yesterday that was at the hospital when I was there, and she said that her brother was like an alcoholic and he would have to get tested. He was a firefighter, and they would pay for someone to test him like regularly, but he wouldn't know when it is, and that is more effective because they can't choose like, oh, I'm not going to do it this day because the person's going to come today or the next day. They would just show up, and it was kind of unaware and stuff like that.
Okay.
Since Doran said that it's free healthcare, so you can just take your kids to the hospital anyways, then if you can, like, if it's free healthcare, then can't you do it for free at the school?
No, because it's a different program. It's a private care plan that the school is paying for out of your money.
Okay,
So it's
do you
kinda
really, since the parents are paying for it, do the parents really not trust their kids that much to not be?
Well, no, it's in your yearly fee.
It's
You
very,
pay for the yearly fee, and then they pay.
yeah, it's
for
very
that.
likely for children to not.
Because you're paying for everything else.
Christopher,
You have to pay.
you said that. We have a question. You said that if a kid takes a substance that is illegal and it's not for them, it is possible for them to get addicted under peer pressure, so they will take it again.
No, I said it is possible that they may try it because of peer pressure, but it is also possible they won't get addicted. Like, for example, with most people who try marijuana, for example, they try it once and they just don't like it. It's just not for them. They don't take it again. But if the test is very soon after, that can affect the results.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well that's the debate. Thank you.